Alright, so we got a bit of a tornado risk today. Haven't done a forecast video in a while, so I thought I'd do one for today since this is maybe the last notable tornado risk for a little while. And at the moment, the Storm Prediction Center has a pretty large 10% hatched risk out. It'll be interesting to see if they upgrade that to a 15% risk, but either way, there is an elevated tornado risk today, and that is not surprising to me. First of all, looking at the FE3, we can see semi-discrete supercells, and this is at, I think 4 p.m. now, with 4 p.m. Central Time, now that the daylight savings time thing happened. But we can see semi-discrete supercells in there's one in southwest Missouri, some in northwest Arkansas, and in eastern Oklahoma. And that coincides with the Storm Prediction Center's 10% hatched risk. Other areas that could be under the threat for tornado risk is, one of them is central and eastern Missouri. The threat up there is lower because the instability is notably lower up there. So because of that, the storms might not be as strong and be able to produce tornadoes. Into northeastern Texas, wind shear is a little bit lower. So main area is going to be this area, I think. And the threat of a strong tornado certainly exists today. There are a few things that makes this threat a little more conditional. Honestly, I think models have downtrended slightly since yesterday, but the threat, I think, still certainly exists for a notable tornado event to happen. So here's a sounding that I took. I just took a quick sounding. I think this is northwest Arkansas, and it shows a decent environment for tornadoes. 72 degrees, so temperature does not look like a problem. Humidity in the low levels, 84%, so plenty of moisture with this setup. When it comes to lapse rates, I honestly picked a sounding with a little bit higher lapse rates than other ones we're showing. The lowest lapse rate here is 6.1 degrees Celsius per kilometer, which is a little on the low side. Maybe not for a late season setup like this, but it could be lower. It's definitely enough for a tornado risk. Some areas, particularly further north into central Missouri, might have lower lapse rates, as well as maybe into central Arkansas. Photographs, going over to photographs, we can see a pretty good shape, honestly. Critical angles are below 45, which is usually where I think the risk starts to lower. You don't need a huge amount of curvature in the photographs in terms of critical angle. However, I do think that lack of curvature could lower the tornado risk today. And I'm not usually one to say that. I usually am one that says photograph curvature is overrated. You don't need a lot of it. But this is maybe crossing the line, although I do think it's enough for obviously a 10% hatched risk. The low-level shear in terms of speed shear, which is usually what I look at, 0 to 1 kilometer shear at 33 knots and 36 knots for 0 to 3 kilometer shear. So those values are decent. I think depending on where you take a sounding, a little bit further east, you're gonna have higher. You're gonna have a little bit higher wind shear, but also weaker instability. Maybe getting below 100 or maybe getting below 1,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE. And if that's the case, that means the tornado risk could go down and maybe the severe weather risk as a whole. So overall, the threat is definitely there. And also one more thing to mention is the sort of orientation of this hodograph. Usually, or a lot of times, you'll see hodographs with these upper level winds a little bit more to the east. But I've seen this some setups like this before, and I've usually associated when the hodograph is tilted from like a west to east orientation to a little bit more of a south what would it be southwest to northeast orientation. So basically, the photographs being a little bit more tilted diagonally, I've associated that with a little bit more of a tornado risk. I don't know if that's due to surface low setups being a little bit more potent, but it is one of the reasons why I think this threat could end up being a little bit higher than expected, at least by the Storm Prediction Center. But at the same time, there's certainly things that could hold this event back. Messy storm mode is possible, and as well as lack of hodograph curvature, weaker low-level lapse rate. So there's certainly things that could hold this event back. It is conditional risk. You don't always get events that are this conditional. For example, yesterday was a pretty easy forecast in my opinion, putting the highest tornado risk in southeast Oklahoma. And I'm not talking about the early morning storms. I didn't really forecast those. But tornado risk certainly going to be there today. It's a little conditional, given just the look of certain convective allowing models. I do think that this could end up being a tornado outbreak, but there's, like I said, it's a conditional risk, more conditional than usual. So that's my forecast video for the day. I got to get back to class, so I think I'm going to end it here. Thanks for watching.